Alright guys, so I know apparently my new format is lying down here in my futon, but I guess I've just been getting very inspired lately while I happen to be on my futon. So we're going to keep doing videos from here as long as it's relevant, because I generally like to only upload videos when I feel passionately inspired to do so, because I think that's the way you get the best content, when it comes from the soul, from the heart. So I can't wait for the triggering this video is going to cause. A lot of people say, why would anybody lie about the earth being round? A lot of people who believe the earth is round will say, why would anybody lie? What would be the motivation? And flat earthers, they have trouble with that one. They try to come up with some reasons, and usually they sound pretty ridiculous. So I figured I would lend a helping hand, play devil's advocate, and lend a helping hand to the flat earthers and suggest a possible explanation for why millions and millions of people would collectively agree on a delusion that the earth is a globe. Now, I'm not saying that the earth is flat. I'm simply suggesting a possible explanation for why it could be that millions of people would engage in groupthink and believe something that's not true. Now, Aristotle once said, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. This is the essence of critical thinking. You can't be a critical thinker if you refuse to even look at a theory, a hypothesis, or a topic. You know, Joe Rogan, for example, I remember one time he's like talking about how people are starting to believe on the internet that the earth is flat, and Joe was like, yeah, someone sent me a tweet saying, check out Eric Dubay. He's got great work, and he's going to make some great arguments about how the earth is flat. And Joe basically said, no, he doesn't. That's impossible. And he didn't even look into Eric Dubay. He simply refused to even look into the theory that the earth could be flat. Now, I'm not saying that it's flat. I'm saying, how could you conclude that something is not true without even looking into it? Okay, you believe it or not, that's a form of blind faith. It's not blind faith that you believe the earth is round per se, but it's blind faith because you're using a lack of observation and critical thinking to conclude that the earth isn't flat. So let's exercise an educated mind here per Aristotle and entertain an idea without accepting it. Let's be true critical thinkers. Not the pseudo-intellectual pro-science fanboys who believe that the earth is a sphere without even knowing why. And then they viciously attack you for suggesting that it might be otherwise, even though they don't even know why they believe it's a sphere. This is about true skepticism. And yes, these are new How Do You Know It's a Globe t-shirts. I'll put a link below and a card above. Get it now. Trigger the hell out of the pseudo-intellectual pro-science fanboy crowd. This is not a pro-flat earth shirt. It's a pro-skepticism shirt. Because if you ask the average person on the street, how do you know it's a globe? They're not going to have any scientific empirical understanding of why anyone thinks it's a globe to begin with. So get this shirt and support true critical thinking and skepticism. I would argue that one possible explanation for why millions of people would and could believe something that is not true, like, let's say, the earth being a sphere. Again, I'm not saying it's not a sphere. I'm juggling a hypothesis in my mind for the sake of entertaining it. But if it turns out that the earth wasn't a sphere, how the hell could so many people believe a lie? Or an erroneous worldview? Well, you have to think of it like this. A heliocentric model, which basically posits that the sun is the center of our solar system, and we're a bunch of spinning balls circling around each other, has been around for many hundreds of years. Before we had the technology to get into a rocket ship, fly up into space, and then look back around and finally see what the shape of the earth was. So even before we had the capacity to empirically prove the shape of the planet, we have, as a culture, as a society, science has believed that the Earth is a sphere, the heliocentric model. So you could imagine that tens of thousands of scientists, going back to when the heliocentric model was proposed and accepted and supposedly proven through experimentation. So you could imagine that these hundreds, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of scientists back when the heliocentric model was proposed and eventually, supposedly proven through experimentation, you could imagine that it became a consensus amongst scientists, amongst the scientific priesthood. And once it becomes consensus, that usually will create resistance to alternative theories. So, it's not necessarily that scientists back then were closed-minded and were hostile to any alternative proposals about the nature of the universe and the shape of the planet. It's just that when you have a consensus, when you have universities built around these scientists, many of which are also double as professors, and professors usually will only teach the consensus, and you have students paying money to learn the consensus. Now you've created a financial structure around the consensus. There's just a natural resistance to alternative ideas that go against the mainstream scientific narrative. In fact, if you look at Thomas Kuhn's book, I believe that's his name, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, this is a well-respected book even amongst the mainstream scientific crowd. He basically says that if you look at the history of science, and he documents this in his book, if you look at the history of science, it goes through paradigm shifts. In fact, I believe Thomas Kuhn was the dude who coined the term paradigm shift to describe science. And how a lot of times what is held as consensus and true in science can oftentimes turn out to be wrong or incomplete or limited, and then initially it's resisted, the new paradigm that's actually more accurate, even though it disproves the prior paradigm. The new paradigm is often met with resistance until finally, after many years, the old paradigm gives way to the new paradigm. This happens all the time in science, which is a good thing because that's what science should be. Science should give way to what's experimentally, empirically, objectively true. The problem is that consensus worship isn't science. Consensus worship isn't the scientific method. All right? If I ask you, what shape is a planet? And then you say, it's a sphere, and I ask you, how do you know that? And you say, well, I don't know, everyone else believes it. That's consensus science, and it's not science, it's pseudoscience. Science is experimentation, not blindly believing what the consensus of scientists believe. Now, you might say, maybe you could say that, for everyday functional purposes, it helps to just go by consensus. That might be true, but you're opening up yourself to the possibility that what you're blindly believing in, based on blind faith, could be wrong, as happens in science all the time. Sometimes paradigms are wrong, and they get replaced by new ones. Happens all the time in science. So, imagine that. Imagine hundreds of years ago, the scientific consensus, the heliocentric model is established. Everyone everywhere believes that the Earth is a sphere. Universities are built around these beliefs. Later iterations of science and teachings in space and orbits are all based around the presumption that the Earth is a sphere and that the planets are a sphere. And it builds and it stacks for hundreds of years, and then it permeates into culture, into everyday society, even the layman who's not interested in science. And everybody starts to believe that the Earth is a sphere. Back then, a few hundred years ago, no one could really prove it. I mean, they could prove it through certain mathematical models and trigonometry, but they couldn't prove it in the most basic way, like get in a rocket ship, go up there, turn around, and take a fucking picture. So imagine people went hundreds of years believing that the Earth is a sphere. It's passed down from generation to generation. The Earth is a sphere. It becomes the mainstream model. The Earth is a sphere. The Earth is a sphere. The Earth is a sphere. People believe in their minds that the Earth is a sphere. They're taught from an early age in school that the Earth is a sphere. Fast forward hundreds of years to NASA, and finally we had the technological capabilities to actually get in a fucking plane, or rather, get into a rocket ship, go to the moon, far as fuck away from the planet, turn around, and boom, we see that it's a sphere. Whoa, right? Incredible. Paradigm shifts confirmed. The Earth is a sphere. But what if, after hundreds of years of believing the Earth is a sphere, based on something not so concrete like trigonometric experiments, which I would argue isn't as concrete as getting on a fucking rocket ship, turning around and looking to see what the planet's shape is. Imagine after hundreds of years of that heliocentric model permeating our society, that come NASA age, we get in a rocket ship around the 60s. We go up into space. We're like, yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, one small step. We're going up into space. Woo! And then they turn around. They look back at the planet. And it's a fucking flat Earth. Oh my God. And the fucking astronauts are like, what the fuck? I thought it was a sphere. And it just goes in a fucking, repetitive circle. And, and then, we can just cross, circumnavigate the globe over and over and over again. But no, it's a fucking sphere disk. And wait, does this mean that we're actually the center of the universe? And, wait, wouldn't that basically prove the existence of some kind of creator? Because what are the odds that we're the center of the universe, but we're not, we weren't divinely created by some fucking intelligent designer? And then you can imagine their brains exploding, shitting their pants, because they were made to believe in this heliocentric model, which has massive ramifications to your individual life, how you view yourself, and the emotional structure you've built for yourself in this universe. Because if the Earth is flat, and let's say we're the center of the solar system, or the universe for that matter, wow, that puts to rest this sort of billiard ball we're just bouncing around in a meaningless, pointless universe. With no purpose or point. That kind of puts that to rest. And imagine, you could be thinking to yourself, oh my God, does this mean that God is real? And, hey, the heliocentric mainstream scientific view that we're just a bunch of pointless billiard balls bouncing around in a pointless universe void, that convinced me that God isn't real. But oh my God, it's flat and he might be the center of the universe, and the astronauts are fucking shitting their pants looking out the fucking window of their rocket ship. Oh my God, it's flat, and maybe God is real. Oh my God, did I betray God's trust? Maybe I should have been, not sinning my whole life and all. Like, you can just imagine the fucking panic. The fucking the surrealness. The cognitive dissonance. And so, what do they do when they have to come back down to Earth and report to the entire planet of billions of people, oh, by the way, everybody, you know that globe model you were taught since a kid that formed many other belief systems about your role in the universe and your place on this planet and the universe, and whether or not there might be a God or might not be a God, and are we just a bunch of pointless material bodies bouncing around in the fucking cosmos? So hey, go evolution, go survival of the fittest. There's no moral, there's no sense of morality. Do whatever the fuck you want. You know that globe model? Well, guess what, billions of people across the planet? Turns out, it's all bullshit. It's actually a flat disk. I mean, people talk about what the reaction would be if aliens ever landed on the planet, and that it would be like mass civilization chaos. How about the reaction that would happen if fucking NASA astronauts came back down from the moon and said, the Earth is flat and we're the center of the universe? That would cause society-wide panic. That would cause society-wide chaos. The paradigm shift, the just absolute holy shit, the world is completely different than I ever thought it was. That would fucking bring a fucking apocalypse on Earth. So what I'm arguing in this video is that people always ask, well, why would they lie? Why would they hide the possibility that the earth is flat? Why would people try to hide that and resist that? And, well, that's a possible explanation. That hundreds of years ago, before we had the technology to really get up in a rocket ship and look at the shape of the planet for ourselves, you know, through actually like getting up there and seeing it from a proper distance, we had already established a heliocentric model based on fucking trigonometry experiments using shadows cast on the Earth's surface. I'm not saying that's not verifiable, but I don't think it's as concrete as actually getting off the planet and turning around and looking to see the fucking shape of it. So we already had developed and established that it was sphere, that the Earth was a sphere. And then that had permeated for hundreds of years. I mean, do you realize the ramifications, the widespread systemic, cultural, institutional, governmental, educational ramifications, ripple effect that would have? It would throw so much shit out the window that you might as well just like the world might as well go into a fucking apocalyptic meltdown. So you want to find a possible reason for why people wouldn't, people would try to hide that the earth is flat. There, to me, is a pretty rational explanation for it. The heliocentric model convinced millions of people for hundreds of years a certain worldview that we conceptualize in our brains when we think about our place in the world. And you'd be surprised. These conceptual models that we have in our minds about our place in the world, they almost form like a psychological structure as well. And if you tear down that psychological structure of your sense of your place in the world, you're tearing down your emotional sense of stability to a degree. You know, I'm not saying you're going to lose your mind, but it's probably going to make you feel pretty fucking anxious for a while. You're going to be a little weirded out. So that's one possibility that I'd like to suggest. One possible explanation for why millions and millions of people would believe the earth, would resist the possibility that the earth is flat, and would even go to lengths to cover it up. For the same reason the government, you know, if you believe in UFO conspiracies, I'm not really concluded on that, but if you believe in UFO conspiracies, same reason the government would try to hide UFOs. Because the effects that would have on religion, on many cultures, would be apocalyptic. So I can see reasons for why the governors, the government, who have to govern us, that's their role, wouldn't want to make society ungovernable by putting out, oh, by the way, the earth is flat and everything you know is wrong and we've been wrong for hundreds of years and it turns out you might be the center of the universe, and if you are the center of the universe on this flat, motionless disk, then it actually turns out that there could be an edge to the planet, or it might be an infinite plane or some shit, or we might be trapped in this little petri dish surrounded by the Antarctic wall or whatever the fuck the flat earthers push, and so on and so forth. So, you know, they would never want to disseminate that kind of information. It would be antithetical to being government. So, again, thank you guys for watching. And yes, I do have my "How do you know it's a globe?" Flat Earth t-shirts are now available. And no, it's not a pro-flat Earth shirt. It's a pro-skepticism shirt. So when you go out and you wear this shirt in public, it's just a statement of skepticism. Seriously, if you ask the average person on the street, how do you know it's a globe? I mean, yeah, how do you know it's a sphere? They're going to be like, I have no clue, actually. I was just told it was. And you can be like, so wait, you believe that it's a sphere based on blind faith alone? So this shirt isn't about promoting a flat earth. It's about promoting true skepticism. And it's about eradicating blind faith. Why do you believe it's a globe? How do you know it's a globe? Where's your scientific proof? You actually have none. You're just blindly believing in the current consensus, the current scientific consensus. But consensus isn't science. That's just something that the average person clings to because it's easier than performing experiments himself. So how do you know it's a globe? Pro-skepticism t-shirts trigger the pseudo-intellectual pro-science fanboys, trigger the pseudo-intellectual pro-science atheists with a shirt advocating true skepticism. Don't blindly believe in anything, whether it's religion or scientific consensus. Know why you believe in something, and if you haven't really directly confirmed it for yourself, don't place all your eggs in that basket. How do you know it's a globe? Pro-skepticism t-shirts are now available. I'll put a link in the description below and the card above. Go out and troll people with this shirt. It's a great conversation starter, that's for sure.